right, I said we were going to come back and talk about various levels of offenses that were mentioned in what you wrote about in relation to the ethics. I so wish we could be sitting in a room talking about all the different levels of offenses, but is it an offense if somebody takes one stamp? 47 cents. Is that a big deal? It might not be a big deal for one, but if 10 people did it, 100 people did it, I mean, of course, then it adds up tremendously. And so we need consequences. So one of the ways that we can look at the different types of consequences according to the offenses is by using our policies and procedures, which we have in our handbooks, which are critical. And I know different businesses that don't even have a handbook. Oh, I'll be fine. You know, I'll handle each situation as it comes, which is great. Each situation should be handled accordingly, yet there needs to be consistency. That's where our policies and procedures come into play. And I think, Kathleen, you made the comment something about, well, if we just sweep it under the rug, the message is that, well, there really are no consequences. I mean, if you come in 5 minutes late, not a big deal. Nobody said anything to me, so maybe I can come in 10 minutes late tomorrow. If there's nothing to define what we need to make sure the rules and regulations are, then we have a problem. There are implicit and explicit expectations. Implicit expectations are those that we just understand. I understand that my boss wants me here at or before 8 o'clock in the morning when I have an 8 o'clock class. I'm usually here by 7:30, sometimes earlier, depends on if I have to take my grandsons to school. But it's an implicit understanding that I will be in the classroom and have class started by 8 a.m. Explicit expectations are those that you'll find in my regular syllabus. I mean, the syllabus that we have in this class is one that Monty wrote, and so when I picked up the class, I just continued that. But for those of you that have been in my class before, you've seen my explicit, there will be no texting in my class, there will be no computers in my class, or else you'll sit next to me. Those types of things that are written, and those things need to be in handbooks and stated as policies and what the procedures will be with those consequences. For example, you talked about, maybe we can confront a violator. Well, part of the issue there is you need to get the whole story. Some of you have heard me tell the scenario in class. Kathleen, you might be the one that's never heard this, as I've told a story about if an employee came in and, or you're the boss and you overhear a discussion. So-and-so has gone through a divorce and gosh, she just can't get into work on time this week. She's just out partying and living it up, and this individual has worked for you for several years and never been late, always gone above and beyond, but the last 3 days she's come in late. So she comes in, and the first thing you do is you say to her, Jane, what's going on? What are you doing late? And she's very apologetic and says, oh, I'm so sorry. I've worked hard to get here. The situation is, and I didn't want to burden anybody with it, is the fact that I'm going through the divorce. I have a child that's in the hospital. So what happens is my mom comes. She lets me leave the hospital. I come to work. I go back to the hospital. She stays with my other kids. So it just isn't working since she's trying to get the kids to school in the morning. I am so sorry. Tell me what I can do to fix this. Well, in the first place, the biggest mistake that was made was you didn't confront her the first day. The second thing is you've been listening to gossip, which, they say that grapevine talk can be beneficial at times, but you need to be very careful. But you needed to investigate. You needed to find out, is she out partying all the time? Is she coming in with a hangover? Well, guess we just found out the truth. She's been at the hospital all night, hasn't had a lot of sleep, and she's still trying to come to work and be a productive employee for you. So then you as the supervisor need to try to come up with a viable way to help this individual. I've had kids in the hospital, I've had grandkids in the hospital, and my heart is not at work. My heart is at wanting to be at the hospital. So, is there a way to allow Mom, Jane, to go to the hospital, stay with the child, have some days off, come back to work when it's appropriate? Maybe she's in a situation that she critically needs the money. So, could you work out where, okay, rather than come in at 8, you come in at 8:30, take a half-hour lunch, you can still get off at the regular time. I mean, you can throw all different kinds of ideas out there. The point is, the consequence is the fact, is there a consequence in this type? Should she be fired? Well, probably not at this point. But you have another situation going on. What are you going to do with all those people that were gossiping? Do you have consequences for gossiping and spreading rumors? You need to figure that out. That's where the policies and procedures come in. Is it ethical to talk about somebody when you don't have all the facts? Unfortunately, that happens a lot. But the key thing here is confront the individual. Get the facts. Find out. Don't let them lie to you. I mean, I had a student come to me at one time and say, "Oh, Jerry, I was at the bank. I got a chance to get this loan, and that's why I wasn't in class." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's a pretty viable excuse." And then somebody came up to me later and said, "Hey, Lucka, just so you know, so-and-so was in praying to the porcelain gods. That's why they weren't in class. They had a hangover." Time to investigate, time to get to the facts. Who's telling me the truth and who's lying? Zach, you made a comment about the fact that sometimes there are some gray areas. Are you a black and white person, or are there gray areas? The key thing is, realistically, is each situation needs to be handled in a fair yet consistent and appropriate manner. All right, we're going to stop there, and I'll continue in just a little bit.